Welcome to the Gaming Lounge podcast, episode 9. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
Great. It looks like I just jumped out of a pool of sweat, it's because I did. It's me on the pool of sweat.
So we have a bunch of news to talk about today, and also we're gonna honor Resident Evil's 28th anniversary today. We're gonna do our first retrospective. That's gonna talk about all our favorite things of the series and where we start off with and stuff like that. So before we get into that, Dory's been playing Stellar Blade's demo, which came out yesterday, I believe. Can you tell us about that
Yes.
demo?
Yeah. This is the Jiggle Physics in 2024 game that a lot of people have been talking about. Caught a lot of eyes when it was originally announced as Project Eve. I didn't get these vibes initially, but once people started saying we have near Automata at home, or Automata, however you want to say it, I was like, oh yeah, it does look like Nier. And it turns out that the people behind it, especially one of the leads, said that he was directly influenced by Nier, specifically Automata. And I love Nier Automata, so that's not a bad thing. I guess a couple elephants in the room out of the way. Main character is definitely not written. She's barely written. She's designed for sex appeal. Now, I have kind of mixed feelings about that in the year of our Lord 2024. I don't think that's inherently wrong or anything. I'm not against women being sexualized or whatever, but it is a weird kind of thing and seems kind of regressive, specifically in terms of video games. This feels very much like what we were doing in the mid to late 2000s. I feel like games like Bayonetta get away with it a little bit more, although they still face flack, but they get a little bit away with it a little bit more because Bayonetta is not a game that takes itself very seriously. Plus, the sexualization is part of the point of the game. It's not like kind of a thing that's kind of underneath the surface. But yeah, I mean, there's been talk about Xbox not having it on their consoles or anything like that because it goes against certain policies. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's fine. Everybody has to draw the line somewhere. One thing that I think is really funny about this conversation is that there's actually a skin suit, which I mean, there's already not a lot, to the left to the imagination in the default suit, but the skin suit's even more so. But when you wear that, basically your shield is gone. So it becomes, I don't know, even tougher. You can say Dark Souls basically, because there's no way really to defend yourself. So. I don't know. That feels like some kind of intentional move on the designer's part to say go to horny jail. But anyway, enough about that. Just wanted to briefly comment on it. The other thing that I wanted to mention before Seb gets his jokes in is that yes, this game does have some Dark Souls light elements ish. I would say I was watching a review last night of the demo. And I agree with it. I think it's more like Metal Gear Rising Revengeance than necessarily Dark Souls. But you could definitely argue that it's got a little bit of Sekiro and a little bit of Bloodborne in there. Now, I will say this game's a lot more forgiving than the reputation of Dark Souls games, at least. You can hold multiple potions at once. You can have some in storage. It's not a one-hit game. You're not going to die in 1 or 2 hits. More like, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 7. It's less than 10 for sure. So it's not a lot. You can't play aggressively or stupidly. You can't get greedy, but you can afford to make a few mistakes here and there. So it's not like ultra punishing. But there are those Dark Souls elements ish. I will say another reason why I would not call this I would struggle with calling this a Dark Souls like game or a Souls like game. Is that there's also story mode options or difficulty options, I should say. There's a story mode for people who just want to experience the story. I'd be very confused if you wanted to experience the story in this game because the story, as far as I can tell for the first hour, is mediocre VO with decent writing and the most bland post-apocalyptic future you've ever seen in your life. So I don't know why you would play this game like that. In fact, if you feel like the normal mode is too hard for you, and I did the whole demo on normal, and I did the special boss challenge, which I'll talk about soon. Twice actually. then I don't know. I don't even think I recommend playing this game so far. If this is what the story is going to be, it is a little like Nier in that a lot of the storytelling in the game is through conversations at campsites. Get it, everybody? Camps, because Dark Souls. And they have little conversations. There's flashbacks, and then they also have discussions about the environment. And there are cutscenes every now and then, but they're pretty infrequent, and they're mostly to set up fights, not to set up story. So this is a very story light game. But I don't think that's what people are here for. People are here for the action. And I'm sure some people are here for other reasons too. So I want to talk about the game itself, all that perfunctory stuff out of the way. First off, I loved it. Did not expect to love it, but I did love it. Very defensive focused. Basically, enemies have this kind of gauge. It's not a revolutionary design or anything, right? That's been done before. But enemies have a certain amount of gauge. If you keep blocking and parrying on time, you will reduce that gauge from them, eventually leading them, giving you more mana. It's basically mana to do special attacks. If you parry at the right time, I will say parrying feels fair and it feels really fun. It feels really good to pull it off. I was able to do it pretty consistently throughout the whole run of the demo. What's great about the demo too is that it leads into the game, so it's all saved. But a couple other things I wanted to mention before I talk more about the gameplay. There's beautiful graphics. This game looks very lovely to look at. I did have a couple of like collision detection things when Eve was just like sitting on a chair or whatever at the campsite. But other than that, it looked beautiful to play. The action is fast, but it's not, I wouldn't call it blistering by any means. It's kind of in between. It does feel like Platinum Games decided to make kind of a Souls game in terms of how defensive it is. Getting rid of that stagger meter eventually opens them up for this very powerful move called Retribution. You won't need it on smaller enemies, but you will probably need it on larger enemies like bosses. You get, the game's linear, but you get little rewards for backtracking and going off the beaten path. I got potions. You can get the in-game currency. I think it's just gold. It's G, so I presume it's gold. And you can use those at campsites to listen to music, purchase potions, heal up. It's basically kind of like a jukebox situation where you can play whatever song from the OST you want. Music's really good. I don't think that's that surprising. It's a Japanese action RPG, so I don't think that should be any surprise. But when you do heal up at campsites, some enemies do respawn. I don't think that's a big deal because the game is mostly linear anyway. And if you're backtracking, you've probably already cleared everything anyway, and you're just picking up a couple extras. So normally that kind of stuff bugs me, but it's usually the price you pay in those kind of Souls games. So makes sense. You can also fast travel, which I think is weird, but you can kind of fast travel between various camps that are in a given map. If you missed anything or if you find a key later on, there are all these codes and dead soldiers all around. I should mention, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, the game is very violent. And for mature, of course, but yeah, some of those executions that Eve pulls out on these monsters is very gory. So if blood's not your thing, this is not the game for you. You can respec your skill trees basically anytime you're at a campsite, but you do have to buy an in-game item to do it with in-game currency. So not a huge deal, but they do make sure that you're not going to spend it too unwisely because maybe you need that money for potions. You can use potions, but they can get interrupted by enemy attacks. I was just about to potion when I was fighting a boss, and he hit me right in the middle of my animation, and I died. I always find that very annoying, but it makes sense from a logical perspective. But from a gameplay perspective, it can be frustrating because I press the button and I don't get anything for it. So a little frustrating there, but not a big deal. I get why it works like that. Eve has a friend early in the demo named Taki. She's British. Her VA again is not. She kind of sounds like she's just here to get paid and go home. She just doesn't. man, I don't know how to say this without sounding weird, but her voice doesn't really match her, like, her face or her body. Like, she just doesn't. I don't know. It's weird, but she doesn't look how she sounds. You know, have you ever met somebody who, like, they start talking to you and you've never seen them before in your life, and you're like, wow, you don't. It doesn't sound like you would talk like that. Anyway, so I have that with podcast hosts sometimes. It's just weird. I don't know how to describe it, but there's some kind of like voice body issue here going on. Um, Last couple things I want to mention. Eve gets a new friend later on, and his name is Adam. I know that's a really tricky reference for everyone to figure out, so I'll give everybody a couple seconds. There's also training at campsites, which is great. You can do this during the demo. You can train any of your new skills. They'll also give you a little reminder when you enter your first battle after getting a skill. Hey, remember to press blah, 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 so you can activate this new skill you just got. So that's really nice. But you can also practice skills whenever by going to campsites and just doing the special practice. The boss fight at the end absolutely kicked ass. I loved it. I did die the first 2 times, but parrying feels really satisfying and fun. The actions feel crunchy and feel like they have good impact. I will say some of the voice lines seem a little overacted, especially when Eve does a strong attack or something like that. She just like really, her VA really put her all into that one. But the boss fight was really fun. Everything in this game is really fun in terms of fighting enemies. I went out of my way to fight enemies so I could better understand the combat system and be able to respond to enemy attack patterns. And then what's great too is once you finish the boss, you get you get a little trailer showing the rest of the game, blah blah blah. But you also get a special boss fight, which is with Eve at about 80% of her power towards the latter half of the game. And so you get to play with a whole bunch of different tools in your toolkit against this one boss. And I had so much fun doing it. I did it twice. You do get a pistol later in the game, which is fun. But it only has limited rounds. So that's how they kind of balance it. Because otherwise, you'd be able to just take people out from afar. Like playing a wizard in Elden Ring. Who would do that? But anyway. But yeah, so I really have nothing but praise for this game. I had low expectations because of the trailers. I just wasn't really sure whether this was just Sony phoning it in and saying, here, goddamn, have Nier Automata again. But I think they really delivered. This action is really fun. I don't know if it's worth 70. I'll probably pick it up for 70, just because I really love the action a lot. One of my thoughts after beating the demo, which I don't usually have, especially not playing these kind of games, is like, I wonder if there will be a harder mode once you beat the normal mode. So it's really satisfying. I doubt I'd actually play it, but I might give it a whirl at least. It's just really satisfying, is the main word I want people to take away from this. The gameplay loop is just really good. The parrying feels fair. Always feels like there's a good amount of time before an enemy attacks. And it's usually, certain colors happen. If an enemy can't be blocked or parried, you have to just dodge out of the way. And of course, there are perfect dodges, perfect blocks that give you a little extra something if you really want to time it out. I didn't get a lot of those, but I did get basic parries. And of course, I got the regular block all the time. I have nothing really but good things to say about this game. Maybe small little nitpicks here and there, but for the most part, I had a lot of fun with this game. And I'm actually considering picking it up for $70, which is a steep asking price, I think, for this kind of game because it's pretty linear. The story's not much, but the action is so good that I might be able to look past it. So yeah, that's most of what I have to say. I don't know if you had any questions, but I definitely recommend it. Based on the demo, this is looking really good.
Awesome. So let's talk about some news that happened this week and last week as well. So first thing was GTA 6, Grand Theft Auto 6 was reportedly getting delayed to 2026. However, Jason Schreier has spoken out against that And so let's talk about the whole thing in total first. So Kotaku said that Rockstar was aiming for early 2025, which I think we all figured it's gonna be early 2025, and it was coming more and more likely that was gonna. But then they said it's coming more and more likely that it's gonna get pushed to 2026, and 2026 was gonna be like a fallback plan or like an emergency option, and apparently the production was like falling behind. And people were thinking, well, maybe that was why they were mandating people to go back to work like in person instead of remotely. But it turns out that's not really the case. Even though Rockstar has only said that the only reason they did that is because they wanted it was just better like productivity and security reasons more than anything else, not because they were falling behind. And then Jason Schreier came out and said, even though GTA 6 isn't completely immune to being delayed, uh, like any game can be delayed at any time, of course. Uh, the return to office mandate for all employees caused complications within the studio, but it has no indication of anything has changed. So there's no indication that all the workers going back to work in the studio is because the game was falling behind. So I guess that was just a rumor someone made up, or there was just wrong information there. So like as of right now, the game is still on track to come out next year, as the trailer said. So what do you think of this news?
Yeah. Sorry, I muted myself so that way I wasn't talking over you. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this was delayed because, especially with a game like GTA, right? It's been held up forever. At this point, I mean, you can just say that it doesn't matter if it gets delayed a few more, a year or something like that. For me, it's always whatever keeps the devs away from crunch is what makes me happy. If we had to delay GTA 6 by another year or two, I don't, it doesn't matter to me. I also don't generally play GTA games. They're not really my kind of game. So it's not really a big deal to me either way, but whatever keeps the devs happy, specifically the people who are um, working under everybody else. I just hope that, things are getting taken care of. It's always a bummer when you're able to work from home suddenly and then you're pulled back into the workplace. So that's not always the best fit for everybody. Some people have health issues that just makes it very hard to actually work in a given building or whatever. So that's a bit of a bummer that they had to do that, but I understand the security concerns given what happened last year. Yeah.
Right. So another thing in news was Marvel's Rivals got revealed this week by NetEase Games, which, if you don't know, they're a Chinese studio that are known for making mobile games that have tons and tons of microtransactions. So that's a bad sign. So this game is a superhero team-based PvP shooter. It comes out on May 18th, so not too far away. And you can play as 18 heroes. You can play as Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Groot, Hulk, Iron Man, Loki, Luna Snow, Magic, Magneto, Mantis, Namor, Penny Parker, Rocket Raccoon, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, Storm, Star-Lord, and the Punisher. So that's a good cast of characters. So the story is crafted by NetEase writing team. It says it's a merciless clash between the tyrannical dictator Doctor Doom and his future counterpart from the year 2099 has forced countless universes to collide in the time stream entanglement, creating new worlds and crises still unknown. Now superheroes and supervillains from across the multiverse must fight together and against one another as a disparate groups seek to defeat both dooms before one achieves domination of these realities. So once again, another multiverse story. That's the new trend right now. Everything's a multiverse story. The big story here as well is that it's PC only, so a lot of console gamers were not happy about this game. From what I saw, like it's nothing like groundbreaking. It doesn't look it's gonna be amazing, but it looks kind of fun. Like I think I'll have fun with it for a couple hours, and then that'd be kind of it. I'm not sure. Like it's going for that Overwatch vibe, I think,
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that space, and I think people are gonna dig it a little bit, but there's gonna be so much microtransactions in this game because NetEase, all their games just are just full of things like that. So, but that's expected. It's a free to play game, I believe. So
Yeah.
it's not a bummer because that's not something I would like. I said, if I have fun with this game for a couple hours, then I'm happy. So to me, it's not a big deal. But I'm curious if this game can like actually become successful, and because if it is, then you can have a lot more characters, and this game could have long legs. But I'm just curious like how well this game is going to do. What do you think, Dory?
Yeah, first off, I want to compliment the animation in the announced trailer. It looks really slick. Um, for the gameplay itself, though, yeah, definitely Overwatch vibes. Looks like they really want to cash in. I'm surprised that the Marvel hasn't done this before. That they haven't tried for some kind of like PvP-esque battle royal kind of game before. I mean, I know, they had the Fortnite crossover, so I guess they did that during 2019 or something like that. But still, yeah, it's kind of wild to me that this hasn't happened sooner. I know Marvel Snap was huge in the mobile market. I don't remember if that had microtransactions though.
I think it does. It's on Steam as
Yeah,
well.
okay. But yeah, I know that was a huge hit for them, so it makes sense that they would try something kind of similar in terms of it being like a lower key production, not as much money thrown into it. Yeah, very comic booky style. Look, if you put Squirrel Girl in there and it's free, I'll probably play it. But no Squirrel Girl, no deal. So yeah, I don't have too many thoughts on this. I think it's cool that Marvel's diversifying in terms of what kind of games they're putting out, but I doubt this game is for me. And I don't see Squirrel Girl on that roster, so I ain't interested.
It feels like there's a space considering Overwatch 2 is pissed a lot of people off and canceling the
Yes,
PvE,
absolutely,
all that. It's been very negative since it came out. So
for sure.
there's a
Yeah,
space to
there's
jump into.
definitely, yeah, absolutely. I was about to say, yeah, there's definitely a space now with Overwatch pretty much dying in some way, in a big way. I thought I heard that there were some rumors that they were basically killing it off at this point, or maybe not the whole game, but at least certain elements of it, which I think you just said, the PvE part. But yeah, there's definitely space there, and I mean, if anybody can fill it, it'll be Marvel, I guess. Even though Marvel's not anywhere near as popular as they used to be in the 2010s. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe hopefully something cool comes out of this. But PvP games are generally not for me, so I don't have any sort of hype towards it. But the animation does look nice, and the gameplay, I do like the kind of art style they're going for. And maybe they'll add some cool DLC characters.
All right. So another news that happened this week was Geoff Keighley played Judas, which is Ken Levine's next game. Ken Levine being the creator of BioShock, and he gave us a couple details about what he played. He played about 5 hours of it,
Yep.
and he compared it to BioShock, which is no surprise. We all said that, right? It looks very similar to BioShock. It could be in the same universe. I'm not sure if it is, but it definitely could be. He said the hacking abilities look pretty cool. The character can track movements and actions, and apparently there are 3 factions in this game. There's the sheriff, there's the
Nefertiti.
Nefertiti, and Hope. Uh, now did he? I didn't watch it, but did he talk about like the factions in detail?
Yeah, so basically the sheriff is, well, first off, he's played by Troy Baker. Everybody stunned silence, go. But he is the kind of the law and order type. He's trying to have humanity basically survive. So basically what happened in the story is that there was some kind of plague that took over the planet. I think it was some kind of biological plague. And the rest of humanity have escaped on this big ship called the Mayflower. There is 3 factions, like you said. Nefertiti used to be the sheriff's wife. So there's like a whole family dynamic where Hope is like their adopted android daughter. It's really weird. I mean, it's System Shock plus BioShock. in space. I guess System Shock is in space, right? Anyway, so yeah, so it's System Shock plus Bioshock. Anyway, yeah, and then Hope, Nefertiti wants everybody to become robots. The sheriff wants everybody to move forward as humans and try to struggle and survive. And Hope wants everything to die. And I'm not kidding. She is really messed up. She basically what Judas did. You're Judas, the character. Very inventive title. Great job. And kidding, of course. But basically, you ended up upsetting the whole order of the ship by telling everyone that they're all robots, or at least that two of them were robots, or something like that. Not completely clear. And then that threw everybody into an existential crisis, and Hope went into an existential crisis, the worst. And now she wants basically all of humanity to be wiped out, and that's the only way forward. So Hope's kind of like kill everything with fire. Sheriff is order, and Nefertiti is like cybernetics are the future because humanity is done for. Let's just move forward and become robots. And she's already mostly become a robot herself. So yeah, those are the three factions.
These sound like Fallout factions. Sounds like very Fallout kind of story.
Yes.
So they all want your loyalty, and they punish you if you ignore them, and by like blocking exits, and they want to fight you and things like that. Also, the graphics of this game look really good. That's not a surprise. I think Bioshock, when it first came out, looked amazing. So I can imagine his newest game is going to look fantastic as well.
It still looks nice, the original Bioshock.
Absolutely. It's still in development, and seems to be like Jeff said it's long away, like it still has a long to go before it comes out.
I wouldn't expect to see anything serious come out of this for at least another couple years. It seems like he's got a lot of the foundation set, obviously. If Jeff was able to play the first 5 hours, but the way he talked about it, he made it seem like that we were at least a couple of years out from any kind of like big release date or anything like that. Not a huge amount of time, but definitely like it's not happening this year. I'll tell you that. Maybe late next year, but probably the year after. I don't know. He wasn't specific. That's just me speculating. But Jeff seemed to have a great time with it. There was also an IGN roundtable discussion with Ken Levine. I didn't watch it because it was an hour and 45 minutes, and like I have other things to do with my time. But Ken Levine answered a lot of questions there. So if you want to know more about Judas, you can go there. The basic gameplay is Bioshock to a core, to a point. It's in your right hand you've got a gun, pistol, shotgun, whatever. In your left hand you've got some kind of power, electric or fire or whatever. I mean, it's just it gameplay wise it is Bioshock for the most part. Which I think is very funny because apparently Ken Levine wanted to focus on smaller games, but instead he's come out with, basically Bioshock 4 or System Shock 3, depending on how you want to look at it. Yeah, I don't know. It looks really cool. I'm excited to see it. I am eagerly awaiting. I love all of the Bioshocks. Yes, that includes Bioshock Infinite with its garbage political story, and I'm not saying garbage because it is politics. I'm saying garbage because it's bad politics. But to me. But anyway, I love all of the Bioshock games, 1, 2, and 3, or Infinite. So I'm very excited for this. System Shock Remastered did not click with me, but I also was having some PC issues at the time. So that could have been more on me. I don't know. But yeah, this looks really cool.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Bioshock, so I'm definitely really excited for this game. It's one of my most hyped games it's out that we know of, and I'm expecting this game to come out in 2026 at the earliest, and 2027 probably at the latest. Maybe I don't expect this game to be out another 4 or 5 years. I'm sure a couple years. Maybe next year we'll start really seeing like legitimate gameplay and like a real showcase for it, and then 2026 is probably when it comes out. All right, before we continue, this is going to be our ad break, so Dory, take it away.
This episode is sponsored by everyone's favorite feral goth girl, Gogo, the game mistress. Gogo is a professional GM and geek event organizer. She's an award-winning cosplayer, published author, voice actor, and general menace to civil society. Gogo has professional experience running D&D, Pathfinder, World of Darkness, Fate, Lancer, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, Warhammer 40k RPGs, and over 30 other systems for cons, companies, and private tables. If you pay her enough, she'll even run Fatal. You can hire her as the game mistress for your online tabletop group over at startplaying.games/game mistress. That's startplaying.games/game mistress. The link is in the description, along with her link tree. Mention our show to GoGo to get $5 off your first 5 sessions.
All right, so another news that randomly popped up this week was that the fact that Spyro 4 is possibly in development. So this was revealed by a YouTuber called Canadian Guy A, and he went to PAX East, which is in Boston. That just happened this week as well. And a bunch of insiders, long story short, told him that the Spyro 4 just started its development in January of this year, and several people have told him this. So it sounds like there's some truth to this. I'm not sure, but it does tie into the previous news that we got that Toys for Bob became independent, and then they were going to make a deal with Microsoft to develop a game, and then Microsoft owns the Spyro IP now, so it all lines together. And the only thing he did warn though is that yes, it probably is in development, but it can definitely be canned, shelved, delayed, or changed at any moment to something completely different. So that it's like they probably have not even started anything besides just like the pre-planning stages, and this game could easily morph into another character or another game. So, Dory, what did you think about this news?
Yeah, so I watched through the whole video. Canadian Guy A is somebody who actually I watched for the first time when Spyro Reignited first came out. So he's been big in the Spyro community for a long time. Described as a Spyro insider by some people. He's apparently had scoops before, so he's got a track record. A lot of important people come to PAX, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's been able to talk to people. Like you said, it fits with that timeline. It's also interesting because he noted that one of the Toys for Bob's announcements when they went indie was sharpen your horns. Now I don't know about you, Seb, but I'm pretty sure Crash Bandicoot didn't have horns last I checked. So out of the two of them, pretty sure that's a little sly reference to Spyro. Now, of course, like you said, anything could happen. It could be canceled. This rumor could be dispelled. But it seems pretty certain at this point that it is happening. Why else would Toys for Bob go independent? Why would they break off from Xbox? Why would they, or Activision, I should say, and only to reform up with Xbox? They must have something that they actually want to do, besides work on Call of Duty for the millionth time.
Right, exactly. I think they're sick of working on a Crash game. I mean, they did Crash Bash, Crash Team Racing, Crash 4.
Yes.
So Spyro, the only thing they did was the Reignited trilogy, which is absolutely fantastic. And I've been actually in the mood to replay it on Steam. And I've been playing the first game, and it still runs really well. And I got the platinum in all three of them back when they first came out on PS4, and they're fantastic. I love the Spyro games. Spyro is one of my favorite PS1 games, probably my top 40 games of all time. Probably it's definitely one of my favorite platformers.
Yeah.
Even though I think second one is objectively better than the first one, but either way, they're all great games. And I was just curious, is there anything you would specifically want in this game? Is there anything that you would hope to see in a Spyro game?
Yeah. I would love if they brought some characters back. I mean, obviously, you want Moneybags there. You would love to get Sheila, their professor, or Hunter back. It'd be great to get some of those characters back. Maybe have a bit of a time lapse and see what happened, 5 years from then or something like that. You could always call back to the past. And have the son of Ganas Deacon Orc or some shit, right? I mean, it's Spyro. You can do whatever the hell you want. I just love that world. You could still get the drummer from the Police. No, I'm not kidding. For people who didn't know, that's the guy who's behind a lot of the music. Absolutely rips. And he's still alive as far as I'm aware. So you could still have him do the soundtrack. I'm pretty sure he collaborated with Toys for Bob. So I know they have that working relationship with him. So the soundtrack is in check. Obviously, they've got the graphics down. I thought the voice actor for Spyro did a great job. I just think this would be a home run for them. Now I didn't play Crash 4, and I didn't enjoy the Crash remakes. I was one of the odds one out, but that's more of a me thing. I just haven't grown up to really enjoy platformers. I did like a lot of it, but I found certain levels, like the castle level in 1, just broke me. And so I just gave up after that, and I didn't try 2 or 3 because I'm very
Well,
I'm very routine. I'm very routine orientated, and so I couldn't beat 1. So I was like, in my mind at the time, I was like, well, if I can't beat 1, I don't want to play 2, and I don't want to play, which is silly.
well, two and
But
three
that's how I
are
was.
yeah, 2 and 3 are way better than the first one.
Yes,
First
2 and 3 are
one's
better,
way
and
harder
there's
too.
yes, and 2. So I should have just played 2 and 3.
Yeah,
But that castle level broke me, and I got so upset. I just was like, no.
that bridge
I
level
didn't.
too was ridiculous.
I didn't enjoy Crash Team Racing either, but that's not a surprise. I'm not into racing games as much as I used to be when I was a kid. I think the only racing game that would move me at this point is some kind of Burnout game. Although I even remember playing Burnout Takedown a few years later, and I found it really frustrating how you'd often get hit by oncoming traffic or crash into things, and it just completely derail your momentum, and it really like pissed me off. Anyway, so I haven't been a big fan of all their Crash stuff, but that's just me. That's not to say it's bad or whatever. Like we talked about it last week. I think they would hit Spyro out of the park. I love Spyro 1, 2, and 3. Kim and I played that together. That was her introduction to Spyro. So it's a really like treasured memory for me of us playing it together. It's a really accessible game. Yes, it's a platformer, but there's also some action. It's funny and it's colorful as heck. The music is a bop. Obviously, you got to bring Sparks back. I'd love to see new mechanics too. They did a new mechanic with Crash 4. They did the whole time mechanic, right? So I would love to see them doing something with Spyro's breath or his wings or his claws. I mean, a slightly older Spyro would be cool too, to show that he's grown up with us. They don't have to do that, of course. You can keep his sort of childlike demeanor if you want to. But I think it'd be cool if Spyro was a little bit older. We get a different look at his character and stuff like that. But yeah, these games are always so fun, and I think Toys for Bob really understands what makes Crash work and what makes Spyro work. So I have a lot of trust in them at this point, and honestly, any of their slip ups in the last few years, I would more so blame on Activision than on them. Activision is, as we both know, a horrible one of the worst video game companies, and stuck them on Call of Duty of all things. So, even if you want to say Call of Duty is an important property, it seems weird to put the people behind Spyro Reignited Trilogy and Crash 4, some of the more family oriented games in the non-Nintendo space, on Call of Duty. But anyway, yeah, I just think this would be a home run for Toys for Bob. Is there anything you'd want out of a sequel?
I think you hit on everything. The only thing I don't want is I don't want gimmicky levels like where like Crash 3 had where like you fly on a plane and shoot things. I mean I know those levels in Spyro where you fly around and through the rings and things like that, but I don't want any like.
But those are like
levels.
side missions. You almost never need them unless you're going for like 100% or something.
Right, that's true. Though I always 100% Spyro games, so
right. Well, fair.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. I just don't want anything gimmicky. It's like that's a big thing.
Yeah,
I don't want like a. I don't want Where Spyro. I don't want him to turn into like some weird monster thing. I don't want any gimmicks. I just kind of want like a pure Spyro game. It can have some different mechanics and stuff. Like Spyro 3 had like the skateboarding and stuff like that.
Yes,
but that's fine. I just don't want anything like Sonic Unleashed or something. Something out of the blue. It just doesn't feel right. So anyway, so the next couple topics are going to be all about Resident Evil now. So Resident Evil, as I mentioned earlier, is having its 20th anniversary this month. March 22nd is when the first Resident Evil came out on PlayStation 1. And it is my favorite franchise of all time. If anyone that knows me knows I'm a diehard Resident Evil fan. I've beaten practically every game many, many, many times. Resident Evil 1 especially, I've beaten at least 15 times. Now it sounds like a lot. Like, how do you have all this time to play all these games multiple times like that? Well, these games are meant to be speed runs, so you can beat. if you know what you're doing, you can beat these games pretty fast. So that's the whole. That's why I think it's the main selling point of Resident Evil is the replay value. Like they want you to do multiple playthroughs. Before we get into our retrospective, I want to talk about a rumor about Resident Evil 9. It's apparently going to be open world, which is very very odd. Open world Resident Evil game. When everybody like saw that rumor, people were like, "What? Why? And how?" Now my assumption is that it's gonna be similar to Village, where like 'cause Village kind of had open area sections. So I guess that's what they mean. That's what they're going for. But I just have a hard time imagining like a Dragon's Dogma 2 kind of Resident Evil game. I mean, it's not like Capcom's known for making giant open worlds. Like I think even like Monster Hunter has a big map, but it's still like there's levels and stuff. Like you have to load into it. I'm not sure how a Resident Evil open world game could be done. Like, are you gonna have zombies in the open world, monsters in the open world? You fight like with a team. I don't understand. Like, what do you think, Dory?
This is bizarre to me. Look, it's true that 8 had some open areas and they flirted with open worlds. Like, I want to make a really good metaphor here, but my brain ain't braining. But like, this is like, man, I don't know. I don't want to see this. I don't need this. I don't want it. I'm fine with open areas, to be clear. But they've been doing open areas in a way since RE4, right? And RE8's based on RE4 in quite a few ways. So I have no problem with that. But like, let's keep it at that level. If this rumor is true, I'm a little worried because I don't need an open world game with Resident Evil. I like you said, I don't even know how that would work. I don't really want to know how it would work. I'm fine with Resident Evil as it is. Like it feels like they finally nailed the formula with 7 and 8, and also RE4 remake, and the other remakes, of course, as well. I don't really feel like now is the time to like if you really want to do that, Capcom, like especially when they've been on such a roll. I mean, Dragon's Dogma, the Resident Evil stuff, Devil May Cry. I mean, they've been knocking it out of the park for years now. If you really want to take a big risk for this, wait for this kind of trilogy of the Winters family to be done, then take a big risk. That's what and I'm not like a business expert. I'm not like a game dev. I don't know. But that's my point of view as a gamer, as somebody who actually, goes in and plays the games. I don't, it's like that meme. It's like, we don't want to see this. Like, I don't know about this. This seems, and I'm not saying they couldn't make it good. I'm not saying that there's no, I'll never play it. I won't even look at it, right? Like, if it gets good reviews, and this actually happens, first off, it's a rumor. But if this actually happens and people are like, oh, no, that's actually amazing, I'll be like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
But, like, it just sounds like a very unneeded addition. I think they've modernized the Resident Evil games very well with 7 and 8. I think we just keep to that formula for 9. And then if you want to go crazy after 9, I mean, it's the 10th entry. Why not?
Right. I mean, Dusk Golem's he's not 100% right all the time, so
Right.
he kind of just throws rumors out there, and I'm not sure I totally believe this, if at all.
Yeah.
Like I can see it being open section like Resident Evil 4 Remake or Village was. Like Resident Evil 4 Remake had a lot of open sections. Like you get on the boat and you can explore different areas of the map and stuff like that. But other than that, I can't imagine a Dragon's Dogma 2 Resident Evil game. I just don't see it.
Yeah,
and I think that would be I think it'd be a mistake anyway. And I'm assuming the main character is gonna be Rose. Like I guess she's gonna do something with Chris. Like I
think the DLC was definitely them teasing that Rose is going to be the next main character, but we'll see.
Yeah, because she has powers and everything, so you can do a lot of cool mechanics with that. Like they did that in the DLC already, but I guess you could expand upon that as well. Just don't do like another Alice. Like I wouldn't want that in a Resident Evil game. But I guess it fits because Resident Evil's always been very over the top action. So, all right. So the Resident Evil series retrospective that we're gonna do now is we're gonna talk about a lot of different questions I have for Dory and myself, and we're gonna talk about our first thing we're gonna talk about is our history with Resident Evil. Like where did we start off like with the series? Now for me, it's pretty easy. The very first game, of course, I was only 3 years old when it came out, so obviously I didn't play it like day one when it came out.
Jesus.
But I watched my dad play it when I was very little because I was into horror when I was young. Like I watched rated R movies when I was a kid. Like I was very mature for my age, my whole life, always been. And I used to watch my dad play Resident Evil 1 and 2 on the PS1, and I loved it. I loved watching it. I was a little scared of zombies, like when I was that age, like 3 and 4. But now I love zombies, my favorite subgenre of horror. And I when I did like later on, I want to say about maybe 9 or 10. I went back and replayed all the old Resident Evil games and just beat them one after another. They were all in the GameCube by that point, I believe. And yeah, this is like what 9 or 10. This is like 2003, 2004. I want to say that they were on GameCube around that time, somewhere around there. And and obviously I had a blast beating them all. But really I started off watching my dad and then playing it when I was like 9 or 10. It's kind of unorthodox. Like I started at number one, but it was more like not in '96, but more so like 2003 ish. By that point, the remake was out as well in Zero, so I played those games on GameCube as well. So I was able to binge the whole series on Nintendo. What about you, Dory?
Yeah. So I think I'm only about a year older than you, right? Maybe two. A year older?
I was born in
I don't remember.
'93, so
93. So yeah, 2 years older. So I was a little bit older when they first came out, but I still didn't play them. It wasn't until the late 90s, I want to say, early 2000s. I had a PS1. I vaguely remember playing the first game. I had a lot of trouble with it. I think I did beat it. Don't ask me how. Somehow beat that. Couldn't beat Final Fantasy VII, but pretty sure I did beat RE1 and I beat RE2. The one I never beat was RE3 because of fucking Nemesis. Relentless. But I loved those games when I was a kid. I loved horror. My mom was a big horror fan too, so she had no problems with me playing those games when I was younger. We probably went to Blockbuster to get them, if I'm honest. I don't remember though. So yeah, I did play Zero. I think one of my childhood friends had a GameCube, and that's how I was able to play Zero. And I remember I was so blown away by the visuals at the time. I was like, this is crazy. Like, how does this look so good? But like 20 years later, right? Yeah, I mean, after that, I got my PS2. I played RE4 on that. My friend also had a PS2. We played RE4 together, taking turns and stuff like that. Eventually, I had a Wii. That's where my favorite version of RE4 is. Unironically, I think the Wii version is probably the best. I think that's even the general consensus from fans. It just felt the best. I think the reason, I went back a few years ago before the remake, and I played the original. I still love it, but the controls are a little, clunky, sludgy, whatever you want to say. They're a little stilted. It's tough to, even when you have the quick turn. And I feel like the Wii kind of fixed some of those issues. It made aiming a little bit easier. It made turning around a little easier, if I remember correctly. So yeah, the Wii for me was the best form of playing that game. I remember asking my grandmother at one point if she could buy the copy for me. I think I was a teenager at the time. I remember trying to give her a sales pitch while also mentioning I'd already beaten this game previously twice. So it wasn't the strongest, but thankfully she loved me enough to do it. So I got to play it on Wii, and it was such a fun time. And yeah, ever since then, I mean, I played 5. I don't think any number comes after 5. I think it went right to 7. I took a long hiatus. I don't think anything happened between those two.
I think 6 is overhated. I don't think it's a good game. I don't think it's a great game, but I do think it's like overhated. Where like people think it's like hot garbage. I do think there's fun in it. I just think the problem with that game is overly bloated. I feel like there was just way too many characters and story arcs.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm being satirical. I haven't played 6, and I have heard from a lot of people that the hate is overplayed. That it does deserve a lot of the criticism it gets, but there are some good campaigns in there that play like basic art Resident Evil, when you're not getting chased by a giant zombie dinosaur, which honestly rules. I mean, that's kind of awesome. But So yeah, and of course 7, 8, 9. I played all those. I still remember when I streamed. I think the first game I ever streamed on Twitch was Resident Evil 7. And those first 2 hours scare the shit out of me. And there's still some clips on my highlights or whatever on both my YouTube page and my Twitch. I said Twitter, I meant Twitch. On my Twitch page of me freaking the fuck out because I couldn't get into the latch and I didn't know that I needed a key. And so I'm just screaming at the top of my lungs. I've told the story to you before, Seb, but it was very funny looking back at it. Yeah, Resident Evil, I love horror. My partner and I watch 15 horror movies every year. We've been doing it ever since we got together. So for at least 5 or 6 years now. I love horror. It's one of my favorite genres. It always, not always, but the best horror always tests the medium of whatever it's in, whether that's video game or film. And I think that challenging boundaries and expectations is always a good thing in artwork, because that's usually how you get societal progress. But anyway, so yeah, I love Resident Evil. It's one of my favorite franchises as well, along with Seb. Honestly, a lot of our favorite franchises are pretty similar. But yeah, that's most of my history with it. I'm trying to think of anything else really, but yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, my history is, man, I have a lot of history with Resident Evil. Like, I talked about my dad, watching my dad play it, and I played a lot of games on the GameCube. On my PS2, I played Resident Evil 2 and 3 a lot because it was backwards compatible. Resident Evil 4 was the one that really I was so hyped for. I rented it from Blockbuster on the GameCube, and that was amazing. It became my favorite game of all time easily. By that point, like, I was so blown away. And I had Resident Evil everything. I had all these action figures. My parents bought me a bunch of like really cool Resident Evil action figures, and I had a lot of collectible stuff. I had shirts, and I was a really big. Resident Evil was my favorite franchise, and I was a huge fan of it as a kid. I played, like I said, I played every game. Resident Evil 7 is the one Resident Evil Village is the one I played the least. I've only beat it once, but I am going to replay it. I beat Resident Evil 7 about 3 times. Resident Evil 2 Remake, I've beaten probably 20 times at this point. Resident Evil 3 Remake, I've beaten maybe like 20 times as well. But those games are very short. And yeah. So my history is very extensive. I'm a giant fan. I go on the wiki and read all the lore and the details. I know the files like the back of my hand. I know the maps. I'm like one of those hardcore Resident Evil fans. All right, so we talked about what game we started with. And we talked about the platforms we played it on. So what are your top 5 games in the series, Dory?
Yeah, my favorite game is the RE4 remake, which of course just came out, but I mean, it's one of my favorite games of all time, and they made it better, so it's kind of hard for it not to be my favorite. After that, it's probably RE4 for the Wii, and then it starts getting a little murky. I could probably say RE8 after that, and then RE3,
the remake or the original?
Remake. Sorry, remake. I don't like. Sorry, none of the. I know this is sacrilege. None of the originals are going to be on my list because I hate tank controls now. My sense of direction and sense of spatial stuff makes it really hard to play those games. Mm-hmm. So I would never voluntarily go back. And then I'd probably. So yeah, RE4 make, RE4 Wii, RE3 make. No, not RE3 make. Sorry, RE8, RE3 make, RE7. Those are probably my top 5, I would say. And then RE2 make after that. Sorry, Seb.
So you got all the new stuff in there.
Yeah, so, I know. I've really rediscovered my love for Resident Evil with the remakes. But I still have a deep appreciation for the originals, but I can't stand tank controls. And I would never go back and see if they hold up, because I know they don't really. For me, I know for some people they love tank controls. They wish we still had them. I'm sorry, I'm not one of those people. I love the modern controls. RE4 is about as retro as I'll get with Resident Evil controls.
I like tank controls, but I don't love them, but I do kind of miss that fixed camera angle style of gameplay. I mean, there's still a lot of not Resident. There's still a lot of horror games on Steam that like have the Silent Hill, Resident Evil formula, old school formula that you can play. But there's nothing that. But like I'm talking about like the big games like from Capcom. Yeah, they don't do that anymore. For me, Resident Evil 4, of course, number one. It's my favorite game of all time. So that's just by default. My second favorite Resident Evil game is probably Resident Evil 2, the original. The original is just masterclass in survival horror. It's kind of a tie between that and the remake, honestly, because the remake is my game of the year in 2019. I thought the remake was mind blowing. I just think the Resident Evil 2, the original, did better, did the story better. There was just more lore, more. I think there was better character moments. I thought Resident Evil 2, the original, had better A B scenarios. Like the B scenario was actually way different than the first one. Why the Resident Evil 2 remake did that was like the worst part of the game is the B scenario was just the same thing. Outside a couple changes, it was like basically the same thing over again. They didn't hit on the story beats that the original game had. So Resident Evil 2 the original is my second. Third would be Resident Evil remake. Resident Evil remake is arguably the one of the greatest horror. Not arguably, it is one of the greatest horror games ever made, but it's arguably the best one ever made. Resident Evil remake is up. It's like it's on the same level as Silent Hill 2. It's such a amazing survival horror game. It has all the beats you want from a survival horror game. The difficulty, the amazing environments, the lighting, just being in a spooky mansion. The fact that like if you don't burn the corpses, the zombies wake up as crimson heads and run at you with big claws, and it's a very punishing game. But that's what it should be though. It's a survival horror game. It's just a masterclass in survival horror. Like I think the only reason why I have Resident Evil 2 higher is just because Resident Evil 2 is just more special to me because I grew up with it more. Well, I mean I grew up with Remake too, but like Resident Evil 2 has Leon and stuff, and I just love the whole Raccoon City vibe and everything. So Resident Evil Remake could easily be my number 2 as well. That game is just amazing. 4 would be, man, I'm gonna say Code Veronica. Code Veronica is probably the most underrated game in the whole series. Code Veronica is really the real Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil 3 was the real Resident Evil 3 was a side game really. It came out a year later. It was meant to be a side game. The only reason why it was called Resident Evil 3 because PlayStation said you want this game on the console, you need to number it that way. But really, Code Veronica is the real Resident Evil 3 because it's all about Chris and Wesker and the build up to Resident Evil 5, and it has it has the best soundtrack in the series, not even close. It's just fantastic all around. I like the characters. It has some people could say it's problematic now because he cross dresses and stuff, but it's not. I don't think it's meant that way. It's more of like it's a psychological thing because his dad screwed him up and he pretends to be his sister, but I don't think it's meant to be like a trans thing or anything like that. But I don't know how people would view it today. Actually, I would curious how people would view it today. But either way, it also does really good survival horror. It does great atmosphere. I really like it. Some people only problem I have with this game, it's very punishing. It locks you out. Like there's a section with the tyrant on the plane. If you didn't collect the right ammo, you can't beat him, and you get totally locked out, and you have to like reset the game from the start because you just didn't have enough like grenades to beat the boss, and a game soft locks you a lot. So it is one of the harder Resident Evil games, but it's amazing. I absolutely love it. And then finally, man, I would probably say Resident Evil 3, the original. Resident Evil 3, the original, is an amazing game. It's very, very short, but I love Raccoon City, the whole setting. I love Nemesis. He's so iconic. The whole battle with Jill, all the iconic lines in that game, big moments. And I play Resident Evil 3 a lot. It's very replayable. If Capcom did a collection of Resident Evil 1 to 3 on like Steam or PlayStation, I would definitely buy that day one. Of course you can emulate it, but I would love to like just have like achievements or whatever. That'd be awesome. And yeah, so that's my top 5. I know I went a little long. So Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil Remake, the original on the GameCube / PS4, PS5, PC, and all that. Code Veronica, which is not on PC. Strangely, it's not on Steam, which is kind of odd. And then you have Resident Evil 3, the original. But I could make a case for a couple other games too. But I think that's my top. Yeah, I think that's my top 5. In terms of our favorite moments, for me, I'll start with mine. First, when the dogs jumped through the window in the first game, like that was so unexpected, right? And the remake they psych you out. They like when you walk in that hallway for the first time, the glass breaks a little bit. You think like, oh, here they come, and they don't. They only come back. It's only when you come back.
Mm-hmm.
Another moment was Resident Evil 4 in the beginning. He's like, "Where's everybody going? Bingo!" Like that. That's so iconic.
One of my favorite moments as well.
Yes, and in Code Veronica, when Alexia wakes up, like in the tube, the music, everything about it is just so memorable. When she comes, you finally get their truth, like you find like the real bad guy of the whole game, and then the fight with Wesker and Chris at the end of Code Veronica is like it's like iconic. I think you finally you get to see Wesker as like his powers for the first time, and he gives like Chris probably could have died like 10 times in that fight. Wesker is just playing with him in the whole fight. That was awesome too. Resident Evil 3, when Nemesis jumps through the window for the first time, and he has like a rocket launcher. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I wanted that in the remake. We didn't get that, unfortunately, but that was amazing as well. And what else? Oh, seeing the liquor for the first time in Resident Evil 2, the original, that was iconic. And those things were maybe my favorite monsters in Resident Evil. We'll talk about that. So, Dory, what are your favorite moments? I have more.
Yeah. Want to shout out the bingo moment. There is a moment too. I think I don't know if this just was the VA messing around, but I think in Resident Evil 5 there's a moment where Wesker says, "You will give me an egg," and it's just really hilarious. I like all the funny moments in Resident Evil. I'm here for goofy Resident Evil. So the bingo moment, Nighty Night Nights, one of my favorite parts.
Look, Chris.
Yeah.
No, don't go.
I love it when Chris and Wesker fight in RE5. I know RE5 wasn't in my top 5, but honestly, I love the co-op in that game, and I love some of the boss fights, especially the final one with Wesker, when you have to punch a fucking boulder. It is just absolutely incredible. Rocket launcher to the volcano, also an incredible moment. Some of the best moments, 3 with Nemesis, the original. God, that clock tower, that whole thing. Thinking Nemesis has died the first time, only to realize, nah, bitch, I'm right here. Just such a pain in the ass when I was a kid.
Plus, I love this is probably my favorite moment of all Resident Evil is when she finally gets to kill Nemesis. It takes it takes 2 laser blasts to kill him, and then right at the end she has a magnum in her hand. She's like, "You want stars? I'll give you stars." That's the best, most iconic line in the whole series, in my opinion.
Yeah, so good.
That. Yeah.
I think the part in Resident Evil 4 where Leon realizes that Ada is still alive is an underrated moment. It's maybe not my favorite moment, but it is a cool moment. Nobody ever stays dead in Resident Evil anyway. Wesker kicking what the heck's his name? Spencer, the mansion owner, out of like the window or whatever. The guy in the wheelchair.
Oh, he doesn't kick him out the
window.
No, he stabs his hand through his chest.
Oh, right. I thought he kicked him out of the window, but I think I'm thinking about Jill. He kicked Jill. Yeah.
Was it Jill or was it Chris? Or it was one of them?
I thought it was Jill because Chris reaches down with.
No, you're right. No, you're right. It was Jill. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then the whole reveal in 5 that, oh my God, Jill's actually alive and she's mind controlled. Fucking ridiculous series. But yeah, those are some of my favorite moments. I could probably name others. A lot of them come from RE4. Oh, of course, in RE8, that fucking house. The second when you're supposed to the second boss you're supposed to fight the puppets.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
With the baby.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. That's definitely one of my moments.
That was fucking terrifying. I think the first couple hours of Resident Evil 7, I know it's not really a moment, but for me, those were like, I was like, oh, we are so back. Like this is Resident Evil.
Yeah, Resident Evil. I wanted to spread it out because I could give you like 10 moments just from Resident Evil 4 alone. Like the original, like rain or shine, you're going down, or the bingo line,
that's right.
Or when he runs up the wall, or he sits in the chair and just like does a cool pose, and
your hand comes off.
Just so much.
Say what you will. Die, Mr. Kennedy.
I love that game so much.
So good.
I actually beat it like the day before New Year's last year, so I beat that game 26 times now on every platform it's ever been on.
So good.
My favorite game. All right, what are your favorite monsters, Dory, in Resident Evil?
Yeah, we talked about the liquors. I mean, especially when they did the RE2 make. That looks so fucking sick. The design looks perfect in the RE engine as it should. Nemesis, of course, looks incredible, especially the Nemesis's later forms. But even his initial form is just great.
Yeah.
A lot of the monsters in RE4, the chief, when he turns into his like half torso spider thing, very cool. I think let's see, Krauser, when his arm turns into that fucking whatever you want to call it, I don't know, weapon, is really cool. He's still very human, but there's relative to other people. I mean, obviously Tyrant's a classic. There are some additions to RE2 make too that had some in the sewers. I remember those guys were really fucking freaky as well. I think anybody else. Some of the bosses in RE5 had really striking visuals. So especially the first boss that you had to lure into the incinerator or whatever. And then I think Alexia, or I can't remember her name. She was working with Wesker, but she eventually gets betrayed because of course she does. But she turns into this really grotesque monster. Yeah, there's so many good monster designs in Resident Evil.
All right, so first thing is the zombies, of course. They're the most iconic.
Obviously,
of all of them.
I was trying to stay away from Ganados and zombies. I felt like this was a bit basic, but yeah, obviously great design.
Yeah, the zombies are awesome. I love the liquors, as I said. They're my favorite. The Cerberus, I love. If I had a dog, I always wanted a Doberman, and if I ever got a Doberman, his name would be Cerberus or Cerberus. I think they call it Cerberus in the game, not Cerberus. But either way, I love them. I think they're a great design. There's nothing scarier than zombie dogs that can run full speed at you. The First, the Dr. Salvador in Resident Evil 4 with the chainsaw. Great. Great enemy. The Mayday boss in Revelations. Did you ever play Revelations?
No, I didn't play Revelations. I never played any of the side games except for, I think I played the one on the Wii that was like an arcade shooter. I think maybe I played that one. Yeah. For the most part, I never played the side games. I only played the numbered ones.
I totally recommend it. It's always like $5, especially on like Steam, and it holds up really well. It's a third-person shooter and stuff, so I think you like it if you like the modern Resident Evil games. What else? Nemesis, as you mentioned, most iconic by far. I love. What else? I think that's all of them. Like the main things that I love, really. Resident Evil 5. Did Resident Evil 5 have anything I like? Nah, I don't think Resident Evil 5 had the best boss designs, really. And Resident Evil 6 had that T-Rex, like the monster T-Rex thing. That was kind of cool. The guy turns into a T-Rex. Like, okay.
Yep.
But it's kind of lame at the same time. Like, it's kind of just random.
Yes.
I wanted that. Let's have a dinosaur just thrown in the game. Oh, the Crimson Heads are awesome. The Crimson Heads.
And then they had like the Whiteheads in RE2 make, right?
The what?
Were they Whiteheads or were they in RE2 make?
I forget what they're called, but I know those. I know what you're talking about. I think they're in 3 though, aren't they? They're just big giant.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking about 3. Yeah, you're right. I'm thinking about 3.
Yeah, those were cool. We didn't talk about the Hunters. The Hunters, they're iconic as well.
The Hunters. Reptilian. Yep.
Yeah, those are a pain in the butt. They cut your head off one swoop.
They're very fucking cool, but yeah, they're really annoying. They're like one hit kills.
I remember in Resident Evil 0, the frogs that like swallow you whole if you get near it.
Wow!
It killed my playthrough at the end. I was near the end.
Well, I know you're gonna crucify me for this. Well, I mean it's the perfect time of year to do so. But what was her name? Alice, the little girl who it was in 0. I can't remember her name, but she turned into was it Alice?
No.
The little girl who turns into the monster
in 0.
And you have in 0 or 1. You have to like run away from her because you can't fight her. Oh, Lisa.
Oh, Lisa Trevor. Oh yeah, Lisa's amazing. Oh, how did I forget
Yeah,
Lisa? Yeah,
Lisa.
Lisa's a great one. Her backstory is so sad and very
Yes.
memorable. They put her in the movie, and it was they made it look good, but the way they did her story was lame, for sure. Uh, what else is there? Resident Evil 2. Did they have anything in there? The Lickers, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil 4. I think we hit on all the ones I loved. Yeah. The Lickers and Nemesis are like the two most iconic for me, of course. So, yeah. All right. And then finally, what are your favorite characters? Now, my favorite character in Resident Evil has always been Wesker and Leon. Like those are like, but especially Wesker. Wesker has always been like, I would have him as my profile picture or something in like online on PS3 or whatever. And I think Wesker's awesome just because he has like Matrix powers. He has like red eyes. He's very smart. He's an awesome bad guy. He's one of the greatest villains in video games. I think. I kind of hate what they did to him in Resident Evil 5. I just thought the way they killed him was kind of lame. There's over the top, and then there's like beyond over the top. Or like, can you imagine like they went from like fighting in a mansion, like zombies in a mansion, to like shooting a rocket launcher in a volcano, like and punching
Right.
giant boulders? It just got a little silly for me. But either way,
Yeah.
Wesker is such an awesome villain, and then Leon, I just I love Resident Evil 4 Leon especially. He has all the like just he's like an action hero. Like Resident Evil 4
Yes.
remake kind of makes him more of like human, where he's having more like emotional problems and stuff. He's not as like he's witty, but he's not as witty as the original. The original Leon is like full on like Rambo or Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's just like has just lines dropping left and
Yeah.
right. He don't put up with anything, and I just love action hero Leon. Like even though it's like really goofy, and especially all the movies that he's in, like he should have died a million times. Like when he gets thrown in the walls, or like bad guys will choke him and then just like drop him. Like they could have easily killed him at any moment, but he always seems to like
Yep.
have that plot armor pass.
Yeah. Or Ada comes out of nowhere to save him.
Yeah, but Leon and Wesker are my two favorite. What about you?
Yeah, Leon's got to be up there for me. Movie star Leon or a remake Leon. I know he shows up in 6, but again, I haven't played it and I don't really want to. Um, I kind of do love Barry, even though I probably shouldn't. But I mean, you could have been a Jill Sandwich, master of unlocking. I mean, this man's resume cannot be beat. He's got incredible one-liners delivered with absolutely no gravitas at all. So I do have a soft spot for Barry for sure. I love Luis. He's great, especially in the remake. I love him more in the remake actually than I do in the original. But he's still fun in the original for the most part. Let's see who else. Jill's great. She's a classic. I love her in RE3 remake. And Leon is also in RE2, but he doesn't have as much of a character as he does in 4. But yeah, I'd have to say Leon, Jill, with a special shout out to Barry, is probably some of my favorite characters.
Yeah, like Leon and I guess he's the same in both the original and the remake. He's more like when he's like 21. He's more just like saving. He wants to help everybody and save everybody kind of person. Like he's like a cop. Like he's just like I'm gonna go help whoever I need. And I think they did that in Resident Evil 4 remake as well. They kind of translate the same personality over. While like in the original Resident Evil 2, Leon has that like personality where he wants to help everybody, and then Resident Evil 4, he's just like full on running up walls, drop kicks and suplexes and one-liners and everything.
Yeah,
Just
so
a
good.
totally different character in like the span of 6 years. And Jill's amazing. I love Jill. I love Resident Evil 3 Jill especially. I like her outfit. I like the original one a little more personally. And I love Ada. Ada's a great character as well. I don't like the remake Ada as much. I'm not a fan of her voice acting, but
Yeah, I'm not either.
I think the original one is really memorable. And yeah, so that's. I mean, I have a lot of favorites. I can name 100 people, but that's like the ones that stand out to me. Or usually Wesker and Leon are my two favorites by far. All right, so that is our retrospective on Resident Evil. As we said, Resident Evil is both one of our favorite franchises. My favorite by far. Um, and I'm excited for Resident Evil 9 and whatever remake they come out next. I'm hoping Code Veronica gets a remake. That's been rumored. Capcom said that like they want to make more remakes, so you would think Code Veronica would be the one they would focus on because it's the least accessible one, I feel like, and it's the most underrated one because people don't seem. I talked to a lot of people that are like Resident Evil fans, and it's like Code Veronica is always the one they haven't played, and it's like that one's really is the real Resident Evil 3. So it's like it's one of those very important Resident Evil games, and I really wished it was on PC. So I do hope we get a remake for that. And then I would play Resident Evil 5 remake, but I'm not sure I'm really excited for a Resident Evil 5 remake. I feel like I think it still holds up as a fun co-op game. Like
Yes.
I would rather they just focus on moving on because what are they gonna do? Remake 6 as well? It just doesn't that feel kind of odd? Like I know it's an old game. It's 11 years old, but it just feels like weird to remake a modern game.
Yeah, I think 4 is really where they should stop, unless they're gonna do some of the spin-offs that are earlier.
Right, but there really isn't. I mean, I guess you could do Survivor, but who knows Survivor? Like
I don't even know that one.
that's a hardcore Resident Evil fan game.
The only thing I can think of
bad.
is Code Veronica, right?
Right, I got Dead Aim. Have you ever played Dead Aim, or do you know of Dead Aim?
I do not know of Dead Aim.
So Dead Aim was a PS2 game. We had the light gun, and it was like on a ship. So it did Revelation. Did it before Revelations? I guess you could remake Revelations 1 and 2, because Resident Evil 2. I'm just Resident Evil Revelations 2. These are side games, but they're like canon and stuff. They have like the first one's all about Jill, second one's all about Barry, and Claire, and it did the whole Wesker children storyline. It had Alex Wesker in it, like
That's right.
Albert's
Yeah.
sister, and she like possesses the little girl at the end, and they never did anything with that after. So there's always something you can do with Resident Evil 9 in the future. I don't know, but yeah, you can do. They're running out of things to remake at this point. I guess you could remake the first game, right, or Zero. I don't think they would do Zero. I'm not sure anyone would really be into Resident Evil 0 being remade, but I think people would dig like a modern take on their mansion. That would be cool. I would definitely be excited for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if they redid 1, I would be super into that. I'm surprised they didn't remake 1, but maybe they just don't want to touch it. Maybe that's too sacred for them, or maybe they're waiting, or
Maybe it's the one they're
I
actually
don't
going to
know.
do, and Nicole Veronica is just kind of just the rumor, but they really want to do
Yeah,
one.
I don't know.
I think it's more likely they
I
would
think-
do one than Code Veronica. To be honest.
Yes, I think 1 and Code Veronica is all they've got. After that, you've got to start moving on and just put all your efforts into 9 and 10.
Right, I totally agree. All right, so that's our episode. On the shorter side, but like we're not every week's gonna have full of game impressions and a million things to talk about. So thanks for joining me, Dory.
Yeah.
That was really fun, and I'll catch you later. Peace.
Here's my best Resident Evil voice. All right, here we go. Resident Evil 4.
4.
Fuck, that sucks. Keep that in too.